have received a few feedbacks about how I've set up Simulator Controller, and I would like to give you here a little bit of guidance to make the introduction, the first step into the program easier, which particularly is then focusing on getting things like an Azure subscription or OpenAI, which you then potentially require for the best experience while using Simulator Controller. So stay here, and then you actually get over the next few minutes a complete introduction and learn everything that you need to directly jump into the experience together with a spotter, race engineer, a race strategist, and driving coach. So what you need to know before we actually can start with the simulator setup, it is beneficial that you have set up an Azure and an OpenAI key before you, at the end of the day, do the simulator setup, because there are areas in the setup itself where you would require these keys, so you don't have to go back and forth. You actually have them already by hand. And then just in the process of setting up Simulator Controller, you can directly enter the existing keys that you're prepared already. Going into the Azure portal, first of all, you need to register yourself. I'm not showing now this process, as at the end of the day is pretty self-explanatory. You have to provide a credit card for both services, but the amount of tokens that are for free are pretty huge. So I'm not expecting that there is a lot of money that you have to spend. But even if it is a few cents that you potentially have to pay for the amount of calls that you potentially have. So first of all, we have subscriptions and we have resources. So what we want to do first is we want to create a subscription. And as soon as we are creating a subscription, we just define a name. It's now my abonnement 1. That's my standard name now. We just continue and continue. We can actually define a few information about that, and then we can create the subscription. That is the easiest step. You see all the time in Azure, it is creating the subscriptions. It doesn't create costs or something like that. It's just a subscription, and it actually puts it into a proper bucket where then later the resources are that you are requiring to use voices and speech recognition. We have now created the subscription, which is called Abonnement 1. And what you want to do now is you want to use the search bar here, search for speech, and then you get this symbol here, which is then called speech recognition. While clicking on there, you will see all current activated services. I have a few running already, so we are creating now a new one. And while we are creating a new one, you're selecting the created subscription. You would have one entry available, and you also would define a new resource group. So you give it a name. Let's call it new one, and then you define the region of your instance, which is for us now West Europe, which is very important also in the later stage. And we also define the name now, which is something cryptic now. And for at the end of the day, we select the tariff, which is free F0, which is then the free service that we for sure want to use. As soon as we have then created that, so first of all, we check it, then recreate it, and then you see on the right top that currently the installation is going on. And we can now, hitting the overview of the resource, new one, we now see the installed speech recognition service, where we actually define the cryptic name now. And while clicking on here, you will now see the keys. So you have a key 1 and 2, you have the region, and you also have the endpoint. This information you're writing down now, particularly the key and the endpoint, and then we continue with OpenAI. In OpenAI, you once again have to register first with your email. You have to give a credit card. The same rules applying like for Azure. Here, you now have to define a new project, or you just use the default project. It's fairly simple. The only thing you have to do here now is you have to create a new secret key. And in here, you just then define the name. That's my new key. And once you did that, a secret key is being generated. And that secret key you have to copy and put beside, because that's something you require then later when you're setting up simulator controller. That's it for OpenAI. Now we go over to the simulator controller config. There was now just the setup for Azure and OpenAI, and what we want to do now is we want to set up the bare minimum of simulator controller, including my usual setup when I'm going into my session. Let's check this out. Let's dive right into setting up a simulator controller initially. So we jump into the simulator setup, but just a quick remark, all of what I'm explaining is documented in very much detail, so you can also check the guide for sure, and also the videos that are officially available. But it goes into very much detail. I try to be as high level as possible. Let's go into the simulator setup. It will jump now. Start the configuration. You see two screens. The one screen is always an explanation to the particular setup step you have to do. And then on the middle screen, you at the end of the day, you do the configuration. So step one is, and I would prefer you to unblock the applications and DLSS, which gives for the setup extra security rights to the software to like write the properties and save the settings. We are just going ahead now because I just show my setup rather than doing my configuration now. The next one is interesting because here we are doing the basic configuration around voices that we can hear and that we want to hear from the driving coach, engineer, strategist, and spotter. Localization language I've set now to English. I have a push to talk set up as hold and talk on a key on my wheel. That's my setup. You could also press and talk. You could also hold and talk. Depends on what your preference is. You could also map a key on a dedicated button box, no problem. And then we have here our assistants. I've defined own names for myself. They are all in English. And what you can do here, and this is where you require Azure subscription for, you can type in your subscription key, your token issuer endpoint, and then you have way more languages available. They are of higher quality than the standard Windows languages. This is something I absolutely would recommend. Doing this one by one for every assistant that you want to run. Further, we have now a few modules we need to activate, like voice control module, controller input devices, etc., etc. There is documentation as mentioned. I just stop in a very particular area here now, which is the module team server. It is not now activated because I'm not running yet team events, but this is the area where you would then have a team server set up where you can share strategies within the team if you're running endurance races, which is super big if you want to get into endurance. Furthermore, and this is the next very important topic, is software plugins. So you can open here in the simulator controller directly the folder where the plugin is stored that you require for LMU. And this plugin you need to copy into this folder in your Steam account. So just, right click on it, say copy, and then navigate into the folder destination where your Steam installation of Lemon Ultimate is. And in your Steam installation, there is a folder called plugin. And here you just copy in the DLL so that at the end of the day, similar controller can read out telemetry data of your running game. Now let's go ahead to the next important step. I again jump over a few of these setups here now. Now we are around the general configuration of the voice control. Here again, you want to use your Azure subscription with your subscription key as noted down. So this is like the return. If you speak to someone, you get a info back. The voice is talking back to you, and here we do have the speech recognition that you want to set also to your Azure subscription. So once you set up the upper part, the lower part is being set as well. You theoretically could also change that to something like the standard Windows recognition, which is again not the best choice. We have the Azure subscription, so we should use it. It works pretty well. Going ahead now, we have to set up our driving coach. And here we now require our OpenAI subscription, because here we now use the data that we have, like the telemetry data, etc., to give it over to the AI, and then comes back with a recommendation, etc., on how to optimize the driving. And this is the area where we do this. I would not recommend to change anything in regards to the models that we have here. It's mostly predefined. Just enter your subscription, and then at the end of the day, it will then directly work. Rates engineers we can set here up per setup game or simulation. We could define here certain individual information on how the engineer should in general behave. The same thing we can do for the strategist, and the same thing that we can do for the spotter. So you see, it's very powerful. You can actually define everything that you want to do. You could also, reduce certain alerts if it's too dominant. In my case, sometimes it's speaking a lot. So if you don't like that, just, cut it down, and you have the freedom to set everything up in detail afterwards, for sure. That's it. Very simplistic. We finish the configuration. It will save it into your folder, and then we are back on the starting screen of the simulator controller. So what are you typically doing if you're running a session? You can go to your startup sequence or startup mode, I would say. And there are a few setups already. I just show you the only two that I most likely do. And this is practicing. So in practicing, I say, well, I need a driving coach. It needs to be active, but I don't require now racing engineer, spotter, or strategist. And I just keep them to silent. Don't disable them. Just keep them always in silent. Because I also had the situation that certain information are running in the background that maybe a driving coach requires or race engineer requires from one of the other assistants, and then these data are not available, and then the assistant will not behave properly. So this is just a tip. The other thing is I also do races, and then for the races I also have a setup, which is then silencing the driving coach but activating the engineer, spotter, and strategist. So whenever I'm starting a session, I do activate that here. I just say it's my practice session, I save it, and then I just need to start the session. Further, if you're having a race, for instance, you can also change your race settings, particularly to the race that you have to do now. So there is some session setups, rules, pit stops, and the strategy itself. So these information are specific to your race, can be set to specific to your race, and then potentially help the engineers and strategists to behave different directly with the right entry of data. Lastly, one last thing is the system monitor. If you find any issue here, that's it for the setup. Thanks for watching the video. We just scratched the surface. Oliver Uvik has a own Discord, has also a YouTube channel. At the end of the day, I will link both into the video. That is a really good source of information. He is also very, very supportive. So whenever you require some details or you want to dig deeper into the software itself or want to make yourself familiar with the software, it is it's great. It's available. It's free. You just have to spend time and resources on your end to learn it. And I hope that video have given you a very quick introduction into the bare minimum you have to set up to get it up and running. Stay tuned. See you on the track.